and welcome to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee, Valerie Sarwak serving as chair, and of course, the Libertarian National Committee, Whitney Bilyeu serving as chair. As always, John Gapso joins us on the big board. He's the one who brings you the infotainment, the graphics, the provocative pictures, embarrassing high school prom photos, whatever we can find on your guests. My name is Pat Forward, and it always is my profound honor to serve the Libertarian Party by introducing folks to not just candidates on Friday nights, but whenever possible on Monday evenings, doing something we call the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight. Joining us tonight is Kevin Gaughen. He is the Executive Director of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. And the reason why we asked Kevin to join us, not only because he's a great guy, but the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania continues to enjoy explosive growth on multiple levels. And we'll focus on them. And we've spent a lot of time talking about the Moulton maneuver and what's that done to drive up the head count, if you will, of Libertarian Party elected officials. But tonight we're going to focus a lot on outreach, recruitment, boosting membership. I'll let him give you the figures. But first of all, Kevin, I know it's been a long day for you.
Yep.
You've got work, you've got involvement in the community, and oh, by the way, you're the executive director for one of the largest and most successful libertarian movements in the nation. Other than that, what else you got for the rest of the night?
Well, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. After this, believe it or not, it's 9:30, 10 p.m. right now. I'm going to spend the rest of the night doing spreadsheets for our next big fundraiser mailing. So
excellent.
Yeah, it never ends. I mean, my day job ends, then family time, and then politics all night. So I sleep once in a while.
There's plenty of time for that somewhere. I don't know where. I'm still catching up from the 70s, to tell you the truth. But tell us about yourself. Every single guest we ask the same question. It's a little bit, if you will, procedural, but it really gives us an insight into how a lot of folks arrived here at the Libertarian Party. So what was your libertarian movement and moment, and that special time when you realized that you were in fact a libertarian and you wanted to get deeply involved in the fight for personal liberty and individual rights here in our nation?
So in 1996, I was I think a senior in high school, and I found on the bulletin board a little yellow card, and it was one of the world's smallest political quizzes, with the Nolan chart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this was before I had the internet. This is 1996, before my parents had it, and, I was a kid. So I took the little quiz on it, and it said I'm a libertarian. And I said, what the hell is that? I'd never heard of the term before. And then the next year after that, I went off to college, and then I got on the internet for the first time in my life, and I looked up libertarian, and I said, I am a libertarian. I didn't know there was a term for this because I'd never really felt like a Republican or a Democrat. I felt like they're both wrong. So I've probably been a libertarian my whole life. I just didn't realize it until about 1997 or so. After that, I got involved in the libertarian clubs on campus. I was the president of the Campus Libertarians. For a long time after that, after I graduated, it was kind of I didn't do a whole lot with politics. And then around about 2016, I saw our options that were on the table, and I said, I've got to get involved. I've got to start doing stuff. So I got involved with the Gary Johnson campaign, and pretty quickly they moved me up through the ranks because they needed people to do stuff. And one of the things we had to do in Pennsylvania was we had to petition to get Gary on the ballot. And this was a total CF, pardon my French. Because, the Libertarian Party at that time in Pennsylvania was just extremely disorganized. I didn't know what petition forms we were supposed to use. I didn't know who to contact about it. And then after I got the signatures, I didn't know who to turn them into. Who's coordinating all this?
Isn't that, by the way, one of the worst moments? You're filling out this paperwork, which literally does have national import.
Yep.
And here in Rhode Island, we're obviously one of the smallest state in the nation, and we're also the last to start the petition process and the last to end. So for the last two cycles, the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island has been number 50. No pressure, right? And you have this moments where you just Did I fill out the form right? Did I fill out the form right? It's a 3-month version of, did I close the window? All right. Or
Yeah.
did I turn off the coffee pot? Because you just live in desperate fear. I'm confessing here, by the way, of being that guy or that gal that forgot to cross the T, and there's some in dark room in some state house. There's some, Secretary of State cackling because they're going to let you go through the whole process and then inform you that, on national news, that you're the guy who screwed up the 50 state thing, right?
Yes. So let's come back to that later because I've got stories about that. So anyway, I turned the petition in. I don't know. Somehow we got Gary Johnson on the ballot that year. I wasn't terribly involved in the party at that point. But after that was an eye-opening experience. And I said, in 2018, I personally am going to lead the petition drive for the entire state. And, everyone was like, who the hell's this guy? We've never heard of him before. But I just kind of barged my way in and I started a group. And I started a Facebook group called Nomination Paper Network for Pennsylvania Libertarians. And basically, I told all the libertarians I know, invite all the libertarians you know, and so forth. Let's get all the active libertarians in the state, all the activists, into this Facebook group so we can compare notes and coordinate efforts. And because of that, we were able to get a large number of candidates on the ballot that year, probably like 18 or something like that. I can't remember. 20, I think. And then 2 of them were challenged off, if I recall correctly. But yeah, as you were saying, there are people, when you turn in these petition forms, in Pennsylvania, they're actually sitting there at the Department of State just waiting for us to show up. And as soon as we turn all our paperwork in, they buy copies from the Department of State, and then they sit there at the public computers, because there are public computers there, and they look up the voters one by one, and they call the voters.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
So right away. So they
stab me.
Yeah. So they only have 7 days to challenge us after we turn in our signatures. So you better believe that they're there that day, picking up our copies. Like while we're in line, they're there waiting behind us in line. They get the copies. They start immediately looking through everything, and they will call everyone and they'll look for, duplicate signatures or anything like that. And not just that, but also the paperwork to get the candidates on the ballot, not the signatures, but the actual paperwork, the nomination paperwork. They challenge that too. So you've got to be really, really careful about how you do things in Pennsylvania, because, you make one little mistake and a candidate gets off the ballot and months of work is down the drain.
Right. Oh, that's harsh, buddy. I mean, at least in Rhode Island, we have to drop them off to town halls around, we've got 39 cities and towns. You've got 39 cities and probably in one county. But nothing, and by the way, that there's so many points that can be developed off of that in another conversation, because it points to the importance of organization. It points to the importance of having skilled, legal folks on the larger team. It points to, the need for volunteers. It points to everything that's wrong with the duopoly. It's got to make you ill, because I'm sure, particularly in Philly and parts of Pittsburgh, and Harrisburg, you've got elected officials pontificating, virtue signaling about the need to give everyone the right to vote, while at the same time, at this moment in time, someone in the Republican Party is either listening or working actively to try and figure out a way to screw us again.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because last year, right, typically it's the Republicans who challenge us off the ballot because they feel entitled to the votes that we earn. Why, I don't know. But lately it's been the Democrats challenging us. I think they've started to figure out that we pull votes equally from both sides. Last year, during the coronavirus shutdowns, Governor Wolf in our state issued a whole bunch of, unilateral edicts where he said, all right, you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to close your businesses. But one of the interesting things he did was he basically outlawed political activity. He issued an executive order saying no political activity during the coronavirus stay-at-home orders, which is a blatant First Amendment violation. We weren't allowed to petition. During the petitioning period, when we were trying to get our candidate on the ballot, we weren't allowed to, so we had to sue him. It's just outrageous.
Well, yes, stupid executive official tricks is what it is. They're hoping that we won't have the resources, or they're so cynical as to realize that if we do marshal the resources to oppose them in court, it's going to take our eye off the ball on other issues. Uh, what's amazing about it, Kevin, is they could just not suck and be better at what they do. And
Yep.
we wouldn't even, if they were good at what they did, we wouldn't have a chance.
Yeah, and I don't think that they fully grasp that. The reason that the Libertarian Party exists is we don't steal votes from them. We are providing a market that didn't exist previously. We are drawing out not just Democrats and Republicans, but we're drawing out a whole bunch of people who wouldn't normally vote because we give them a voice that the other two parties don't give them. And I don't know how to convey that to them. I don't think they get it. I think they're starting to get it, right? Because they looked at Trump's vote totals in all the states where the election was really, really close. The deciding factor in those states may have been the Libertarians. I think they're starting to understand that Libertarians aren't insignificant at all. We're actually the most important voting bloc there is in this country.
Right. I mean, to hell with the whole swing states, battleground states. If they come a courting us, maybe they've got a chance. And maybe
right.
That's an outstanding point, because maybe what we need to do is just make a national announcement. By the way, if you want to cater to us, we're here. Or if you want to spend $1 billion in the next presidential election, knock yourself out.
Yeah, I mean, if they want our votes, they can come to us. That's the way I look at it. All right, we're not voting for you, not because, well, yeah, we don't like you. But the reason we're not voting for you is because your candidates are not libertarian enough for us, right? They're not reaching out to us. They just feel entitled to our votes. So they're trying to knock us off the ballot, or they think if they knock us off the ballot, we're going to vote for one of their candidates automatically. It's just not how that works. They need to pick candidates who appeal to libertarians better if they want our votes. Otherwise, they haven't earned them.
Now, and by the way, if you're just joining us, Kevin Gaughen is with us. He's the executive director of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. You are watching and listening to Affiliate Spotlight. The point here being that there are best practices and genius ideas and brilliant executions happening at affiliates around the nation. And while there's always a tendency to focus on what's happening to the party nationally, the success story that is the libertarian movement, the philosophy, the statement of principles, the platform, is really a reflection of the individual local, what we call down ballot candidates in states like Pennsylvania, New York, California, Texas, Florida, all over the country, but also the ability on a local level. And you think about it, it's sort of proof positive in terms of our approach to everything. A decentralized approach to political success is bearing fruit everywhere. And Pennsylvania is clearly one of the outstanding examples of that. Kevin, you've experienced explosive growth in recruiting not just candidates through the multi-maneuver, but the LPPA has also experienced explosive growth in membership. And let's talk about that. When you got involved a few years ago, back in, I guess, 16 or that area, you mentioned, like a lot of libertarians, we're all herding each other's cats. And what kind of membership levels did you have, and how did this coalesce into such a successful operation?
So what I noticed after the 2018 drive is that we have no central hub that, like an entrepreneur, that everything, not revolves around, but, that holds the wheel together, basically, like spokes. So I looked through the bylaws and I saw that we had a provision for hiring an executive director. And I said, you know what, I'll do that. So I said, guys, would you like to hire me as executive director? And they're like, well, we can't just hand you a job. We have to put it out and we have to take resumes in. We have to open this up like a real job opening. So eventually they hired me, thank God, because, I'd done a whole bunch of volunteer work at that point, and, I felt like they knew me. But what I brought to the job was a background in business and marketing. And my day job is real estate. I own a real estate brokerage, and I've been doing that for like 16 years now, 15 years, something like that. Mm-hmm. And all I do is market. Someone puts a house up for sale. My job is to market it. My job is to market the business. My job is to market my agents. My job is to market everything all the time. So what I saw also in the party, not just a lack of organization, not just a lack of, proper delegation and knowing who's doing what, but also we weren't doing any marketing in Pennsylvania at all. So the first thing I did was I came to the board after I was hired. Actually, it was at the same meeting that I was hired, and I said, "This is what we'll do. I'll put up $2,500 of my money if you, the state party, match me, and we're going to send mailers out to all the super voters that are libertarian in Pennsylvania. And in Pennsylvania, we register by party when you register to vote. So we can easily determine who is libertarian and also who's the most engaged, because we can see how often they vote. Of course, we can't see who they vote for. That's who we started with. We started with 10,000 pieces of mail, and we sent that out, and we had a phenomenal response. If you know anything about direct mail, we had 1.2% conversion rate. So of the 10,000 pieces, we got 120 new members.
That's outstanding. I mean, what is that, about triple the normal?
Yeah.
And on top of that, not only did they open the mail, not only join the mail, that also involved, I would imagine at some level, spending money.
Yeah. So that very first mailing, we spent $5,000 total on it, and we made, I think, $10,200 on that. So we're not only did we cover our costs for that mailing, but we also made money in the process. So immediately after that, at the August board meeting, I think it was, I said, all right, that worked. Now we're going to send another 20,000, because in Pennsylvania, we have about 40,000 registered libertarians. And we have continued doing this. And I built my entire real estate business with direct mail. I don't even have a website for my real estate business. I do everything. I do everything by direct mail, because when I came into the business, my mentors were like, in their 70s, and they were showing me the old fashioned ways of doing this: send mailers, knock doors, call people. And it works because very few people in this digital era know how to do that stuff.
Wow, that is true.
Yeah.
So at any point in time, did they utter the immortal words, "Coffee is for closers"?
I hear that an awful lot, but
the leads, Maury, the leads.
Yeah, real estate's a tough business. And by comparison, growing the Libertarian Party is like shooting fish in a barrel, because these people are already libertarians and we're just reaching out to them. And a lot of them said stuff to me when we first reached out to them. They were like, I didn't know we had a state Libertarian Party. Oh, and that just like hit me right in the chest, because how have we not reached out to these people before? Yeah. So we're doing it now, and we're continuing to roll forward with this. Our last mailing, our first mailing was 10,000 pieces. The last one that I sent was probably about 46,000, if you can imagine. And we've been doing this on a regular basis, and not just mailers, but we're also making phone calls. Like I said, I'm bringing that old school sales mentality to the Libertarian Party. Last year, we probably made 1,000 phone calls to national members in Pennsylvania who are not yet state party members. So that's how we're expanding the roles as well.
Wow, outstanding. Now, what is the requirements for membership? Requirements for ballot access in Pennsylvania?
Go ahead. It depends. It depends on the level at which you're seeking office. If it's a state party, you're about a statewide election, the requirement is 5,000 signatures. It was 20,000, but we sued them and we won, and we got it knocked down to 5,000. Now, 5,000 signatures in reality means 10,000, because you need about double the amount of required signatures. So in case you get challenged, because half of them are going to be thrown out by the court because they're illegible or they're not voters or whatever. For smaller offices like Congress, it could be 1,000, 2,000 signatures. It depends. It depends on the number of people who voted in the last election, I think. For the smallest offices down at the county, at the municipal levels, you might only need like 10 or 20 signatures.
Wow. So you've got to immobilize that. Now, how often does that have to be renewed or proven? And does being elected at any level exempt you from any of that ballot status requirements?
Well, wouldn't that be nice if we were exempted? The only case in Pennsylvania where we are exempted is if in the last statewide election, we got 2% of the vote, 2% of the highest vote getter, I think, for any candidate. And we did that in the last election. Joe Jorgensen got that for us, I think, and maybe some of our down ballot candidates. And in that case, we become what's called a minor party instead of a political body, which is what we would normally be.
Right.
And when you're a minor political party, you get automatic access to special elections. But for everything else, you still have to petition. Now, you want to know what's really messed up, Pat? The Republicans and Democrats only need to get, what is it, like 2,000 signatures, where we need to get 5,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's obscene.
They write the rules. So, they can justify it like that. And we've tried to sue over that, but, the courts say, well, because you're a minor party, you have to prove yourself and blah, blah, blah. But
at what point in time did we have to prove ourselves to be part of the body politic? I just, I listen in my day job. I'm a reporter, and I listen to these announcements, which are just said so boldly. Today, by the way, I heard someone, there's a failing school system with a horrific high school, and someone said, well, we had a lot of twists, a lot of arms to get the funding for this high school. And I'm like, wait a minute, let's stop that for a second. Let's analyze the fact that somehow you have to prove yourself, and other towns have to twist their arms to get a fair share of these heinous taxes that are being stolen from all of us. The notion that there's some type of hierarchy, in who gets access to what and who's allowed to play at what level is, again, it's an obscenity. And I think the national party, I'm speaking for myself, obviously, but as a national party, we haven't done enough to stress the moral failings that are inherent in our ballot access system nationwide.
Yeah, we're really, really good at filing lawsuits and getting the requirements reduced. But yeah, we should be making a big stink about how this is unfair. When I go out and I petition, a lot of people don't know what the heck it is I'm doing. They're like, what am I doing? Signing up for a credit card here or what? And I explain to them, no, this is how people get on the ballot. Republicans and Democrats do this, but they only need 2,000 signatures. We need 5,000. And they're like, that's not fair. And I said, yeah, that's right. They created the rules, and they are trying to keep competition off the ballot. And, sometimes we haven't had it in this state recently, but I mean, look at what's happening in New York. Larry Sharpe got them ballot access, and then they changed the requirement to make it more restrictive. It's just blatantly unfair. It's blatantly corrupt.
Well, ultimately, and it seems like this has become my new mantra, if in fact you are going to virtue signal on behalf of voter rights and against voter suppression, I think we all agree that that's fair. But at the same time, if those very same individuals then turn around and limit what your choices are in an election, are we not hearkening back to days of Soviet workers' paradise? And are we not actually engaged in voter suppression? Because ultimately, they're the only choice in town. And they do so in cooperation with thoroughly corrupted court system that is a product of their political parties. And at the same time, right, we financially support their political parties through taxpayer-supported primaries, through taxpayer-supported matching finance, all sorts of ways to literally engage in a grift that is nationwide at this point. And I know you feel the same way. It's time for libertarians everywhere to get out of the basements, turn off the computer, and go embrace the public at large with this issue. Because I'm convinced it's in the sense that it will level the playing field somewhat, it's a winning issue for us.
Yeah. How bizarre is it that, you can go to the grocery store, and if you're looking for potato chips, there's like 30 different kinds, but you go to the ballot box and there are only 2 choices.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Or during a Democratic or Republican debate, you can have 15 people on the dais,
right,
3 blind mice times 5. While and then when it comes to the top side debates, it would be disorganized and chaotic if we had 4.
Yeah. And so, I love how they changed the requirements to be in the presidential debate. As soon as Gary Johnson was getting close to meeting those requirements, they upped them. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And the presidential debates, it's this private thing that's owned by the Republican and Democrat parties, as I understand it. And they basically conspired to keep any competition out. And they did that after Ross Perot because they're scared. they're going to lose their grip on things if they open it up.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about mailers, because as you pointed out, you've got a career, if you will, in direct marketing in this case, and let me know. I'm going to make a statement here. Tell me if you agree or disagree. If you took a great direct marketing company like Dell, or Apple per se, but let's say Dell because they are direct to the public, in the broadest sense. And you told them, well, you're not allowed to sell computers anymore. And 90 days, you got to sell something new. It's always been my contention that the great direct marketing companies could literally maybe change their name and sell any product using the exact same people, the exact same systems, the exact same approach. It's literally just fine tuning it for that particular product. Do you agree with me on that? And feel free to disagree, by the way. And what are some of the real nitty gritty tips you can give to people in terms of how to tailor the direct marketing so that in those states where you're fortunate enough to have a voter list, what you can do to effectively convert those? That's the term in direct marketing, right? You want to convert those into, at least at a minimum, a response. And then the holy grail, of course, like you've been able to accomplish, is to get a check.
Yeah. So to address your first point, yes, marketing skills translate directly. You could be selling toilets one day and then selling cars the next. If you understand sales and if you understand marketing, you can apply those skills to whatever you're selling. Now, I will say that when you believe in a product personally, the way I believe in the Libertarian Party, you are going to do a much better job selling it because that's just how human psychology works. To the other thing, what tips I could give you on marketing? I actually give a whole presentation on this at the regional affiliate trainings.
Right, next week in Atlantic City. That was the big lead into this. Absolutely.
Okay. Actually, I won't be at that one, unfortunately, but I will be. I'll be at the one in Indianapolis, and that's later in October, I believe. But I believe somebody else might be giving my presentation that I put together in Atlantic City if anyone wants to attend that. But there's a whole science to this. I mean, I could go on for hours and hours about this, but I will give a basic rundown so that newer affiliates or less organized affiliates can imitate what we've done in Pennsylvania. The first thing you want to do is identify which libertarians are most likely to respond. And in Pennsylvania, it's relatively easy because the Department of State ranks voters in terms of how often they vote. We can very easily see who's a super voter because they're given a numerical score. So I take the top quadrant of that, and that was the first group that we mailed to. If your state doesn't do that, there are other ways to get around that. You could buy data lists. People don't realize this. There are data firms out there like Cambridge Analytica that Trump used, for example. They know more about consumers than consumers know about themselves. Every time that you go online and you take one of those quizzes, like what kind of potato am I? They're actually recording your personality traits, and they know your political alignment. They know what sort of ads you'll respond to. For example, when Trump won, he had several different types of ads depending on the personalities of the people who would look at them. They were very, very carefully tailored. If someone's very fearful, the ad would be about national defense. If someone's more concerned about money, the ad would be about the economy or something like that. You can buy this data. It's out there. And in some cases, don't do this without your state board approval or your executive committee approval. But in some cases, you can trade data with them if you don't have the money to buy it. Obviously, there's privacy concerns with that. So you really want to make sure that everyone's on board with it before you do it. But if you're willing to give up, say, your membership database, then this big data firm might introduce you to people who are libertarian and don't know it, or people who are libertarian and aren't signed up for the party. There's another way to do it. Low budget. If you want a really low budget way to target people, go online, right? The FEC database is all public. Look at who contributed to Justin Amash. Look at who contributed to Ron Paul or any other sort of libertarian candidate like Thomas Massey. That's a wealth of data, and it's all free. If those people live in your state, call them up and say, hey, would you like to donate to the state party?
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, it's all out there.
So it's just it's just the having the gumption, if you will. I can use that old-timey word. Having the stick-to-itiveness, how about that one? To just really grind through it. I mean, getting this up and running is it strikes me that there's a lot of no guts, no glory, grind it out kind of work to be done, isn't there?
Oh yeah, like you said earlier, coffee's for closers, and if you want that donation, you're going to have to work for it. I don't know how many. I've made hundreds and hundreds of cold calls for the LPPA. I've sent tens of thousands, probably close to 200,000 pieces of mail for this party, And you have to continually do that over and over again. I mean, think about how often you've seen ads for Geico, for example, over and over and over again. And, I'm not going to comment on the quality of their insurance, but I'll say that everyone knows who they are,
Right.
and they have business because they're so prevalent in the market space. They're just hitting people over and over again with the advertising. So that's the mentality you have to bring to the Libertarian Party as well. You want this party to be successful, we got to keep hammering people over the head. Hey, look, you have a third option. You have a third option. Pay attention to us.
Right. How much of that can be achieved just by individuals going out there and just getting folks to sign up for lists, engaging in the type of detective work at the town level? If you don't have the big budget, this is still possible, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And we have some really great county committees, and the county chairs or the vice chairs or whoever is doing it, they'll go to the county board of elections and get what they call the walk lists of all the libertarians. And it'll show you where the libertarians are on each street. And some people are actually going door to door and introducing themselves and saying, hey, look, we have this meeting coming up. Would you like to attend? One of our folks in Beaver County, I just saw his comment come up. James, how you doing? He reached out to me and he said, I would like to send a mailing out to all the libertarians in Beaver County, because that's where he is. I believe he's the chair there. So I helped him with that, and we sent that out, and I think 600-700 libertarians in his county got a notice of this upcoming mailing, and I assume it's going to be pretty well attended, because they usually are when they're advertised like that. But what I've tried to do is show people in the counties what I've done at the state level, because I want to, I want it to continue down at the county level, because you can't have a strong state party without strong counties.
Right. Well, and that's why we spent a lot of time covering the success stories like New York and like Pennsylvania, because this is all part of a mosaic. You've got an individual team effort dedicated towards developing and recruiting candidates. You've got a separate team effort geared towards getting affiliates up and running.
Yep.
And where that then translates into growth and support financially is that the success of those two efforts can then be built upon by you reaching out and generating the direct mail, if you will, campaigns to individuals who, whether it be on being on voter lists, being part of key demographics, then you've got successful up and running organizations to direct them into, at which point a significant number of them statistically are becoming involved. And what's more impressive, again, I get back to this time and time again, statistically, a number one of them are, as we say here in Rhode Island, are partying with the Skadol, the do-re-mi, the money. And so there's this multiplier effect, if I can steal from an economics term, that's taking place in Pennsylvania, where you've got, instead of this vicious cycle of doom and gloom, which if so many of us have had to face as libertarians, you've got three or more separate efforts happening simultaneously to all funnel resources and people into this gigantic pool.
Yes, it's a holistic system, and I'm glad you get that, because it's difficult to explain it to people from other states where things are very compartmentalized. And as I came on as executive director, there was no person to fill this role. The chair runs meetings and they've got to stay neutral and blah, blah, blah. The treasurer does this, but the executive director does everything. I'm basically a nonprofit CEO. In fact, that's what an executive director is. So I bring that, upper management mentality to this job. And I see all of these things, the candidate recruitment, the marketing, the elections, everything, even our legislative committee, all that stuff is different organisms or different organs within the same organism. Mm-hmm. It all has to function or none of it functions.
Right.
And one of the things that we need to be mindful of is that we all need to work together in order to continue going forward.
How have you been able to, I know you probably have some secret tips. I had the opportunity a month or two ago, before a lot of the more recent chaos started, to just coincidentally interview Whitney Bilyeu, who at that time was serving solely, and I say that with a smile because it's an astonishing job, solely as your counterpart, if you will, in the state of Texas. And she's been able to accomplish a lot of the same things. So I know there was some secret sauce that she didn't want to reveal, but she gave us a couple tips. How do you motivate? Let me step back for a second. Part and parcel of this holistic process, as you describe it, is some long-term thinking and
Yes.
some long-term investments, not just of money, but of time.
Yes.
And there is always going to be that gestation period, if you will, if I go biological, where you're not going to see immediately the results of your success. Now, in Pennsylvania, you've turned this into something of a machine, but there's a lot of places for a lot of reasons, a lot of legitimate, a lot of good people come in and out of this movement where, in a sense, they've got to jumpstart that. What are some keys to motivation, and how long? I mean, this could take months or a couple of years, can it, to get to this point?
It's interesting that you bring up Whitney because she also comes from real estate. As I understand, she's a real estate agent down in Texas. And you have to have that mentality in real estate because it's a shark tank and you've got to do everything yourself. And real estate deals want to fly apart. And you have to be the thing in the center holding everything together as it's trying to fly apart. So that mentality has to be brought to the chair job or the executive director job. Otherwise, you're not going to have a successful state party. You want everything to be working correctly and not flying apart. But at the same time, you don't want to dominate everything and tell people how to do stuff. The other part of what you were saying is, yes, I mean, we're building something that's going to outlast us. That's my hope, right? I'm planting trees that I'll never sit in the shade of. My goal here, I mean, this isn't like my retirement job. This is me putting time in now to make this party successful in the future, because that's what America needs. It needs more choices in the ballot box. And if there's anything that I want people to take away from this interview, it's that please put down the disagreements and the nonsense and the infighting. We need to think about this as a family. What is in the best interest of our family, the Libertarian Party? How can we propagate going forward? This is a movement that goes back to John Locke. It's been going on for centuries. We're just one little piece of it for this brief period of time. Right. And we need to keep that fire going.
It's great to be part of something bigger than you, isn't it? In that sense.
Yes.
You can lose yourself in this movement. And what I've tried to point out so many times, and you're the personification of this with the organization that you folks in Pennsylvania have built up, is that everyone that I've met in the Libertarian Party has got what I lovingly call superpowers. And it's up to the affiliate as a team to understand what those superpowers are and give people an opportunity in a place where those superpowers can take hold and develop great things. And what again strikes me as important about a state like Pennsylvania is that if you're that outgoing person who's perfectly content to table and meet people and engage sometimes in hours of fruitless conversation, sometimes in minutes of relationship building, who knows, right? You never know until one day you get a little, email that says so-and-so has signed up for the party, or you get the phone call, maybe months, maybe a year, maybe more or longer, that says, you know what, I remember meeting you and I've got an opportunity to get involved in. My kid has just graduated college. I've got a new job. I've just retired. My kids, on and on and on for 1,000 different reasons. There's an opportunity for those people. And yet, as you talk about the wonkier side of what needs to be done, and I've spoken to your chairman and I've spoken to your senatorial candidate on a number of occasions, there is ample room for those skills as well. Talk about some of the important traits and skills that are necessary to be involved in this holistic system that you describe.
So it is a holistic system. And as my grandfather said, there's a lid for every pot. Whoever's, managing the affairs of the party, whether it's the chair, the executive director, whatever, your job is not to fight with people. Your job is to put people where they'll be most effective. Or what they really want to do, if they already know, send them there, help them do what they want to do. If someone's really quarrelsome and, they like to argue a lot, okay, well, give them something put them on the legal action committee or something like that, where they have a chance to argue with people. If someone's really pedantic and they love details and everything like that, put them on the bylaws committee. On the rare occasion in the Libertarian Party where you get someone who's kind of extroverted, because this is basically a party of introverts, put them on the membership committee, make phone calls, reach out to people, go knock doors. whatever your personality traits are, there's a home for you somewhere in the Libertarian Party. And if someone's telling you don't belong here, they're not right.
Conversely, and it's funny, I asked Whitney the same questions to a certain degree. Conversely, how important is it for you to, when someone is flailing or ultimately unsuccessful, to move them in a different direction? Everyone's got that spidey sense when it's happening, but how important is it to jump in to rescue that person because before they either A, just get frustrated and quit, or B, God forbid, make a mistake that ultimately costs time, money, people's effort, fill in the blanks.
Yeah, that's a tricky one to walk because you don't want to be too heavy-handed. I mean, just in general in life, and especially not in the Libertarian Party, because the second you start like barking orders or telling people where they should do stuff,
Right.
you're going to get a lot of pushback. And libertarians are the worst in porcupines, so like honey badgers, you know. So
Am I being detained?
Yeah, you're going to get a face full of quills. So the thing to do is to gently push them, and this is where, you know, some people skills come into play, and I think our party's kind of lacking that, you know, to be quite frank. So if someone's not so good at something, I'll say, well, hey, why don't you partner up with so and so, and they'd like to be on this committee too, or hey, I've got another job for you, why don't you do this? You know, I think that I do really believe, it's not a platitude, that there is a place for everyone. And it takes all kinds to make the world work. So if someone's not doing so well at a certain job, I might make a suggestion like, hey, why don't you go over here and try this? And thankfully, I've developed that skill from sales because, you know, the house isn't selling. I have to say, well, maybe it's priced a little high, like I told you 3 months ago. You know, I can't say it like that, but I got to like gently push people. So yeah, you have to be mindful of that. I mean, you want people to be successful and to be where they should be, but also you're dealing with their egos and you're dealing with the fact that they're libertarians and they won't do what you tell them to. So you've got to tread carefully. That's the only way I can answer that.
And there are times when they won't do what you want them to do, even though they are fully cognizant of the fact that what you want them to do, they're better at, but they're just going to say no just because, well, we're libertarians. You know,
Yeah.
I think contrary is the word that can come into plenty of time. But here's the important point. We've kind of, I think, done a kind of a once over, if you will, of a lot of broad subjects. And that's what a program like this is really geared for. But I purposely saved this question for last, because this is, if you will, the closing question. Public numbers. What were the numbers when you essentially took over the process along with a strong executive board, and where are they now, roughly? And I'm talking about membership, money. Tell me the net impact of the success story that is the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania.
Sure. So I can give you some hard numbers. On the day I was hired, I think we had 179 dues paying members. And at the moment we have close to 1,600. So we're almost, we're almost tenfold where we were. And that's, it's in 2.5 years. We were previously making about $6,000 to $7,000 per year in donations. And just last year, we had our first 6-figure year. So we're bringing in over $100,000 per year now in terms of donations. In terms of other things like convention attendance, I think the first convention I went to had maybe 70 people or something like that. I don't remember. And the last one, of course, is almost famous for its attendance. I think we had about 400 or 500 people there.
I was there.
Yeah. This next one that's coming up in Williamsport, we anticipate 800 people showing up. It's almost going to be the size of a national convention. That's what Pennsylvania is getting into right now. We actually had to rent a real theater to hold everyone. So hopefully that contract gets signed and everything like that, and we go through with it. But yeah, we're at the point now where a regular hotel can't hold us, so we need to look at like big convention hotels.
Listen, I have to tell you guys, and I told this story when Ms. Moore was on. I was there, and when attendance exploded, your convention team was incredibly nimble. They managed to get the whole tent thing set up. They managed to make sure there was plenty of alcohol and there were a variety of mood ameliorating substances being shared. It
Yeah.
was. It, I'm going to quote one of my favorite political philosophers right now when I'm summing up this whole picture. And if you haven't listened or read Larry David, you're missing something. But as he would say, it's pretty good, pretty good. And so the numbers. No, the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, listen. In these shows, I am obviously a cheerleader and a homer, if you will. But I've got material here. This is not patronizing people. This is not. These are hard numbers. 9 to 10-fold increase in membership, significant financial improvement. Affiliate development across, and again, here's the big point. Pennsylvania is one of, and I went to spent a few years in Pennsylvania, living there, and it is one of them amongst many other large states. But it's complex. It's a nuanced population. There are probably 10 Pennsylvanias within Pennsylvania, at least.
Yes.
You can go. You can go from a section they call the Wild, and then you can be in Philly or Pittsburgh in a few hours, and northeastern Pennsylvania's got its own personality. You can go from, Rust Belt manufacturing to biotech to Ivy League to, world-class engineering in the space of an afternoon. And as a result, you're appealing to vastly different audiences, vastly different political backgrounds. Pennsylvania is one of the most closely watched states politically in the nation at presidential time, just because of all of this complexity. So if at a moment in history, yourself and you've got a strong executive team there are able to marshal the resources necessary in a national organization that let's be honest, Frank here from maybe a little non-homerish, that frankly has underperformed in many aspects, and you can meet or exceed that by tenfold. That's astonishing, and that needs to be replicated and listened to. And listen, there's a few groups out there, I'd be one of them, who I'll do my wax on, wax off. Okay. if I can learn more about how to translate that success into other places, which leads me to the next question. When you do Indianapolis, and or someone does your presentation in Atlantic City next week, what can they expect to see? And what are some of the areas that you're going to cover in just sort of a synopsis format?
So I typically do 2 presentations at these things, and there will be 8 total regional affiliate trainings around the country. I was in Atlanta. I did the one in Shreveport, Louisiana, and then the other one in Long Beach, California, and then I'll be doing the one in Indianapolis coming up. So the 2 presentations that I give, they're hour long each, and it just scratches the surface. I mean, there's so much to talk about with this stuff, but the first one is how to do a membership drive. That's number 1. And the second one is executive director, not just how to hire an executive director, but how to be one. And then another part of that presentation is what an executive director should do first to get a jump start on the membership drive. So those are just like the basics that I cover. There's a whole I could teach several classes on this stuff, and maybe that's a thing going forward that we should do. This whole training session that Kara has put together is just absolutely great, because we're spreading the knowledge all over the country. People like Apollo Pizzella, he got Marshall Burt elected in Wyoming. He was there giving presentations on how to get people elected, which is great. I'm there teaching how to do membership, which is something I know how to do. Everyone's got their own little area of expertise, and they're teaching it to all these affiliates. So this is step 1 of how we grow this party. We have to coordinate, which is not in our nature, unfortunately, because we're libertarians, but not just coordinate, share information. And going forward, we really need to do this on a regular basis. And I think we need to compare notes more often.
Right. Well, the line I've been waiting to use all night is that you have a proven system. A proven system, which for a limited time and a limited time only, one can avail themselves of simply by either going to Atlantic City or in Indianapolis. So those are, I believe, are the last 2 sessions. And unlike the proven systems that you see on TV, that are marketed in the wee hours of the evening. Your proven system is working demonstrably in a challenging environment and displaying explosive growth. So,
Yep.
this is the stuff that dreams are made of.
So
And
would like to say one thing though, and the stuff that I'm doing is not rocket science. I mean, it's difficult. It's not for everyone, but what I am doing, there are classes on. There's classes on marketing and sales, and managing businesses, and really that's all I'm doing. I'm just applying it in the libertarian world. So,
but let me jump in. In many situations, you've got smart, talented people in affiliates around the nation who, like you, are working. You're working essentially 2 full-time jobs. You've got your business to run, and then you've got this great big old state that has you talk about crisis du jour. I'm sure there's several a week. But
we just had one before this. That's where I was.
But ultimately, you have to jumpstart an organization, and if you don't have the frame of reference, very often you've got a lot of talented people who work in other capacities in life who simply don't have the frame of reference even to where to start. And I often use coding as an example. If you're, if you run a commercial website and all of a sudden you want to, to use all these different plugins and add-ins, all the instructions say is, well, just plug in this and add in that. And sure, swell. I have no idea where to start. And that's the beauty of this training, because you're talking about people who've been in that position, are leveraging what they've learned throughout their professional life, and you're condensing it into a format that, you're condensing it to maybe a couple-hour format of accumulated knowledge and experience that you've gained over 10 or 20-year successful career. You can't bottle that. You can't buy that. And yet here we've got a number of folks in the organization. I'm talking about people like you, like Caitlin Clover, who have all these experiences, and it allows people not to have to start completely from scratch. And it also, the notion that we're all part of the same bigger philosophical family, if you will, and that we can lean on each other to get tips and to reach out to get the starting advice to when you run into a roadblock, knowing that there's people who've been there at a very high level. Yeah, that's unparalleled. And that's been the missing secret sauce, if you will, for this movement, I think, for a number of years, that a number of you have been able to bring together. And that's why this is so important.
Yep. And I think going forward, if we're to be successful as a party, we're going to have to continue working together and, to let people do what they're good at, and to show other people what they're good at, and to listen. When someone's good at something, listen to them. They might know something, I think we see a lot of Dunning-Kruger out in the world, Dunning-Kruger effect or whatever it's called, where people think they know everything, but they've got nothing on the resume to justify that. Well, if that's the case, maybe you don't know what you're talking about. Go to these trainings. Listen to, Tara talking about fundraising, for example, Tara DeSisto, or, my wife happens to be the communications director for LP National. I mean, listen to her talk about communications. That's what she does for a living. Everyone's got their expertise, and we should be learning from each other. And we as a party, like, the most important thing we need to do is to learn to function together. And the biggest problem I see facing this party is the infighting.
No, I hear you. And every week we have down ballot candidates on, and I see these amazing people who are out there in the wild, if you will, in little towns and burgs across the nation, who, through a group of friends, have just gotten together, and sometimes it's just through sheer force of will, are able to mount effective campaigns. And again, being able to add this sort of secret sauce to it can take those people with all that effort and succeed. And what I hope will come of that, the 2016 National Convention, I was the guy who got to go up there from my little state, Rhode Island, and you get to say something cute and something witty about your state, and you've got 30 seconds in a sense to drive home a message if you want. And I asked people at the time to please, when they got home, do the following: go down to your basement, turn off the computer, grab some literature, grab a couple door hangers, print something out from the the world's smallest political whatever, and go out and knock on your neighbor's doors. I got a decidedly mixed reaction. I got half of the folks cheered and half of the folks booed. And a couple of people came up to me late after that and said, well, because, boomer. We didn't call it boomers back then. Boomer. I guess you don't know much about the impact of computers. Really? I run a 7-day-a-week digital television network with a 6-figure social media reach. I might know a little bit about it, but to your point, you're able to take your expertise and actually create wealth, and I'll call it political wealth, financial wealth out of it. And that's, again, none of that is going to happen if we keep directing our efforts inward facing. If all we worry about is what I call libertarian Game of Thrones, then we're nowhere.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of it in the Libertarian Party. And, I'll address the first point, the generational difference. I happen to be, I'm 42 years old. I'm Gen X, I think. I was trained, though, by people who were much older in the sales business. They were in their 70s. They taught me the old school methods. But I think that there's something to be said for meeting in the middle. Like I kind of understand millennials. I understand boomers, but I'm in the middle here. I remember this one group of younger folks, they were like in their 20s. I said, you should go pass out literature at the polls. I mean, that's something we should be doing. And they're like, well, I don't know if I like that and blah, blah, blah. So I said, here's what you do, right? I'll make it millennial for you. Print out memes and hand those out. And they did it. So they went out and they found all the libertarian memes and they printed them out and they were actually handing them out to voters going into the polls. And it worked. I mean, we could see the results of the election at that poll and it worked. So there's something to be said for that.
No, you know what it comes down to? It's using technology to enhance personal contact.
Yes.
As opposed to the opposite.
Yes.
And so if those voter lists or that all the data lists that you talked about allow you then to have a more well-defined, refined approach to engaging in personal contact, that to me is the balance you're trying to seek. And,
yes.
And it's hard. It's far easier to pontificate about on a Facebook chat than it is to execute in person. But there's some line about the opposite of perfect or something like that. It doesn't mean we can't try really hard. And get better at it over time. That's probably is that one of the biggest messages to take away from this? That this is not that you in a sense are a 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 or 20-year overnight success.
It's taken me a long time to get here, Pat. I started as 28 years old in the real estate business. When the hell was it? I don't remember. 26, something like that. And yeah, I didn't know anything. And, they stuck me in a cubicle and then they gave me some like mentors who were like in their 70s. And I just had to keep pounding the pavement and knocking doors and making cold calls. And, but eventually over time, you develop the skills that will translate to any sort of sales. And yes, podcasts are important. Social media is important. All this stuff is important, but it's not about the medium per se. It's about reaching people because politics is people. Whether you knock on their door or whether you have a podcast, are you reaching somebody? That's the question. And, you also bring up the Game of Thrones thing. And I think a lot of the mentality I see in the Libertarian Party is, they see the chair as like power or something like that. And it's not. It's a public service job. And fighting for a chair position is like fighting for, adopting a highway.
Right.
You don't see groups of libertarians fighting over who adopts the highway because that's basically what it is. You're there to clean up trash. You're there to do public service. This is a volunteer job. So I think people need to stop thinking about, party leadership as powerful people or oppressive people.
Or as a goal. A goal shouldn't be to attain party leadership per se. The goal should be to only go there if, in fact, you think you've got. And I'll pull out one more quote since we did Larry David. The Beastie Boys are often a source of philosophical support for me to develop, as they say, the skills to pay the bills. So yes. it's that's why you go for that. There's a gentleman by the name of David Demers in the Libertarian Movement.
I know him.
Out of Nebraska, very wise man. And he talks often about that gleam in the eye when someone can attain power. And that shouldn't be the goal. And the goal shouldn't be to set up hierarchies in organizations. A gentleman who's, David's a wise older man, and he talks about, incredibly enough, one of the positive developments in management techniques in our, your generation specifically. And he talks about coalitions and bringing together people in order to obtain and fulfill an objective, as opposed to bringing people together to build a structure, hierarchical organization. And in project management, I think that's critical. You need an organization, if you will, with some level of architecture built in. But at the same time, when it becomes to actually jobs at hand, very often it needs to be coalitions of skilled people brought together for a common purpose. And if you can, again, achieve that balance between that, where you've got a strong organization behind you, but empowering people for that particular moment to solve a problem, that to me is the holy grail.
Yeah. What I think that anyone should look for when they're looking for someone who will lead an organization is not someone who wants to be in charge. What you're looking for is the servant leader, right? They're here to serve a function. They're here to serve primarily. And yes, we should all hopefully be on the same page, right? We all dislike what our government has become. It's become a goddamn monster, especially since 9/11. And we're all on the same page, I think, that it needs to be beaten back. We need to do something about this. And we have chosen this vehicle, the Libertarian Party, as our means of doing something about it. We're giving the voters another choice here. And we have to continually remind people that this is our mission. Like, the mission is the boss, not any one of us. Like, we're just putting people where they're good at stuff. And it's difficult, but yeah, I mean, we all should be on the same page and we all should be working toward that goal.
No, absolutely. Well, and so first I want to make sure we have an opportunity. You can tell, like I said, these interviews always run long, because you have a wealth of information and material to share with people. So I hope we'll do this again. I'm going to be in Atlantic City, and I'm hoping to I was hoping to meet you in person, but if someone's doing your presentation, I can't wait for it, because it's that makes the 8-hour drive worthwhile. Just like you guys somehow managed to make the 11-hour drive to Pittsburgh worthwhile, just for sheer entertainment.
Just wait till next year.
I've 3 words that you guys missed one opportunity. 3 words: pay-per-view. Okay.
So I've tried convincing the board that we need a cage for fighting at the convention, but I don't think our insurance will allow that. So
that's why God invented salad oil. Okay. But we always want to give people an opportunity to engage in what we lovingly refer to here as shameless self-promotion. So please tell folks how they can reach you, when and where you're going to be on the road. And if you just had one, but if you've got other events coming up like, for example, the convention in Pennsylvania, A, share this with them now, and B, on an ongoing basis. And you guys are pretty good about this, Steve and Jen. They're all great about this. But use this as this show, all the LPTV shows, as a resource to engage in promotion of what LPPA is doing. But go ahead, give us the rundown.
All right. So my day job, I run a real estate brokerage called Gaughen Home Realty, and it's in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania. So if you're anywhere in southeastern Pennsylvania and you need a house, give me a call. Also, I'm an author. I've written 2 science fiction novels, and you can find them on Amazon. And for the electronic versions, I don't charge anything, just because I wrote them to spread ideas. So they're up there. If you look my name up on Amazon, you'll find them. If you want to reach me, executive director at LPPA.org. And the number one thing I want to promote today is the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. And membership is open to anyone, no matter what state you live in, rather famously so.
There's that.
So we would love to have your money, but also we'd love to have your involvement. If you want to volunteer, if you want to run for office, please do. LPPA.org/join is how you join, and it's only $20 for the year. Or if you want to do a lifetime membership, it's $500. And you get our newsletter. You can vote at our conventions and watch the fistfights there, and it's a lot of fun.
Steel cage deathmatch. Yes. Well, Kevin, thank you. First of all, as we also like to say here, thank you for being you.
Thank you for being you.
We'll leave it at that. It's important that when we do these shows, not to listen to the host, you can tune me out. Listen to the guests. There's a wealth of information here, and there's a wealth of best practices. You guys are getting to the point, if I can be so bold as to say, I'm sure internally you've gotten your moments every day, but results matter. I mean, what does Jim Rome say? Scoreboard. There are states, big and small, that are doing it right on different items that all of us can learn from. There's a handful of states that are pulling it together in terms of total packages that really can help us all elevate our game. And I've always been impressed by states like Florida and New York and Pennsylvania and Indiana, and there's others that have always been willing to share their successes with other affiliates in the true spirit of the movement. And so despite the madness nationally, and then sometimes occurs in these brush fires around the country, let's always remember that we're a movement and a philosophy. We share common goals. We share a common lifestyle at the same time while being wildly diverse. And that is the celebration of the individual. And states like yours, we can learn from to enhance that celebration of the individual and bring the individual back to its righteous place in why America has been in the past a very, very successful country on so many levels. So thank you again for joining us. I hope we get to meet in the coming months, and much success to the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania.
And thanks for having me on the show. And if you'll be in Reno, I will see you there.
Absolutely. Folks, you've been listening to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee. Valerie Sarwak serving as chair. And of course, the Libertarian National Committee, Whitney Bilyeu serving as chair. A big thanks always to John Gapso. He's on the big board. He's the one who took your messages, put up the chyrons, flipped to the websites, makes it an entertaining show. A lot of information here. As always, I'm your host, Pat Ford. It continues to be a singular honor to have this opportunity to speak to all of you. Friday night, we'll be back. I think I'm going to be going down to Atlantic City to the training. So we're not sure what we're going to do in terms of a show. We're going to have all sorts of candidates in one place Saturday afternoon. So we may just actually move this to a Saturday afternoon show or something along those lines. So stick with us. By the way, all week long, there's some amazing libertarian programming on LPTV. Please share it, support it, like it. Specifically for the guests, whether it be Kevin or any one of the number of state chairs that we've had, or maybe even more importantly, supporting individual candidates that have appeared on this show. These are folks who invest a significant part of their daily lives in supporting a movement that we're all part of. And they leverage their talents and skills and personalities and work ethics in jobs that none of us are ever going to get paid for. None of us are ever going to become wealthy from, except in spirit and liberty. Have a great week. We'll see you Friday night. Thank you so much.